If you've been watching Super Rugby this year, there's one guy who has been probably the talk of the town, and that guy is Moana Pasifika winger Kyren Taumoefolau. He's got 5 tries from 5 games, including some very, very slick, as I said, highlight-worthy ones. If you haven't seen this dude, chuck his name into YouTube. You will not be disappointed with some of the action this guy has been providing. He's only 21, and he has been just on absolute fire for Moana Pasifika, who've only got the one win thus far, and he still looks a real beast of a player. In a number of the kind of highlights packages that I've seen of this guy, you see some comments of people saying, man, that guy's going to be an All Black. When he gets to the All Blacks, he's going to be devastating, all this kind of stuff. But maybe some people aren't aware because they didn't see him a heck of a lot for Tonga. He has already played for Tonga 3 times, including at the last World Cup back in 2023, which is the last time we saw him play for Tonga. Only got a few minutes, but 1 try in that World Cup. I think it was against Romania. So he didn't really get the chance to come to as much attention as he might have if he'd been given a bit more game time. But then he was also only a teenager back in those days as well. But now that he seems to be taking his game to the next level, the All Blacks chat continues to intensify. Will the All Blacks look potentially at Kyren Taumoefolau as a future winger for the ABs? Well, he will be eligible once he serves the 3-year stand-down period, having played for Tonga, as I mentioned, in that World Cup game. It's already been not quite 2 years, but a year and a half since he's played for Tonga at the minimum. And he is on record as saying it's definitely something he'd be open to. When he was growing up in New Zealand, he always wanted to put the black jersey on. And people often talk about New Zealand poaching players. Well, for Taumoefolau, if I'm not mistaken, he was born here, went to school here, raised here. But he does play for Moana Pasifika. And Moana Pasifika's large kind of purpose in being is to set up players who will be able to go on and play for the likes of Tonga, Samoa, and I guess to a lesser extent Fiji. We've also got the Fijian and Drua. But Tonga and Samoa are supposed to be the main beneficiaries of the talent coming through the Moana Pasifika ranks. And Kyren did go through the Moana Pasifika under-20s pathway. So he's certainly got a connection strongly with Tonga. But he's a born and raised Kiwi. So it's hard to blame him if he wants to switch allegiances. It's obviously his own decision. All the players are grown adults and have the right to play for whichever team is eligible to pick them. We have seen a bunch of guys change nationalities since the opening of those rules to allow switching. And remember, they set up these rules largely to benefit the Pacific Islands, and those have been the main beneficiaries. I believe it's probably not an exhaustive count, but I've counted at least 9 guys who switched to play for Tonga and 6 guys who have switched to play for Samoa. Tongans are the likes of Fekitoa, Fafita, Moala, Charles Piutau, Augie Pulu, Israel Folau, Adam Coleman, Lepeti Tamani, and Kupa Vuna. And some of these guys you feel like are, kind of going back to their roots in terms of like Fekitoa and Fafita. I think were both born and raised in Tonga. But some of these guys are born in the same hometown as me, like George Moala, Piutau, and Pulu. These guys are all born in Auckland, which is my hometown. So it wasn't a shock that those guys played for the ABs at one point in their careers. They were all Kiwis with Tongan heritage. And then for the Samoan guys, Lamusateli, Fa'amuina, Luatua, Sopoanga, Tumanga Allen, and Lelia Fano. Lamusateli's one is probably the most interesting one because he went from the USA to Samoa, which is kind of a tier 2 to tier 2 swap. But largely it's been from New Zealand or Australia switching allegiances to Tonga or Samoa. Those guys have been the main beneficiaries, which is what the change in eligibility law was set up to do. However, we have seen some other teams using it as well. Scotland have benefited from a couple of guys. Jack Dempsey, former Wallaby, being the most obvious one, and then Alec Hepburn as well. He played for England before playing for Scotland, so that's kind of a tier 1 to tier 1 transfer. And then also Henry Thomas, prop, played for England and then has gone on to play for Wales. Also Alex Hodgman, former All Black, has gone on to play for the Wallabies. And like Hardwick played for Australia, then Namibia, and Tamani Valu played for New Zealand and then Fiji. And even South Africa and Ireland get on the mix because John Klein obviously played for Ireland and then switched back to his native South Africa. So we have seen a few cases which are a little bit outside of what World Rugby's original intention was. By my count, there's 16 cases of Tier 1 nation to Tier 2 nation, which is, as I mentioned, kind of what they intended. And there's been at least 5 cases of Tier 1 to Tier 1, which is probably not what they thought was going to happen. And then at least 1 case of Tier 2 to Tier 2. The difference with Taumoefolau would be, this is the first case, I think, of a guy who would be going from a Tier 2 nation, Tonga, to play for a Tier 1 nation, New Zealand, if it happens. The guy is still only 21. He is not currently eligible. But as I said, when asked the question, he has said it is something he is open to. And when you look at the ages of the current New Zealand wingers, the likes of Reese and Talea are both 28, and Caleb Clark's 25. They're all kind of getting to that age where traditionally New Zealand wingers get dropped. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a guy who's currently 21, might be like 22, 23 by the time he's eligible, come onto the All Blacks radar with a future Rugby World Cup on the horizon. But hey, we are only 5 games into the Super Rugby season, so it's maybe counting a few chickens before they've hatched. It's a bridge we don't need to cross just yet, but it is certainly an interesting one. You can probably bet that he will be on New Zealand Rugby's radar, but like I mentioned, it would be an unusual switch, go from Tier 2 to Tier 1, even if he is a born and raised Kiwi, and also the fact that he's gone through Moana Pasifika's pathway, which is not so much there to be an All Blacks pathway as it is to be a pathway for guys more like a Miracle Whailangi, a guy who's from Samoa and goes on to play for Samoa and gets regular Super Rugby with Moana Pasifika. But anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts. Should the All Blacks be looking at Taumoefolau, or should they be kind of hands off? Ultimately, as I said, it's his decision which nation he wants to represent as he gets a call up for Tonga. Will he accept it in future, or will he try to serve a full 3-year stand down and see where he is in the pecking order potentially for the ABs? You guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.